Kimi Antonelli is one of the biggest talents in F1 right now. His rise to the top tier of motorsport is exceptional, and he has shown that he deserves a chance in F1. But there is also something else about him that makes him very special for F1, or at least for one specific nation, because Antonelli comes from Italy, one of the biggest nations in motorsport worldwide. So in this video, I want to talk about why he's the hope for their motorsport culture and their place in F1. And the most obvious reason for this, as I already said, is that Italy is still one of the biggest nations in motorsport. From the first steps into motorsport to world-class circuits, the country offers it all. And especially in international karting, they are the place to be. Most of the current F1 drivers, especially the ones from Europe, have spent some part of their childhood on Italian highways, driving to or from karting circuits. And also the Italian Formula 4 Championship is seen as the best series to make your first steps into single-seater racing. But even in the top classes of motorsport, there are many Italian drivers, teams and circuits like Misano, Mugello, Imola and of course Monza. However, the last F1 world champion from Italy was Alberto Ascari in 1953, and the last Italian to race in F1 was Antonio Giovinazzi in 2021. So the nation has been waiting desperately to get an Italian driver that could once again fight for the championship. And even apart from Antonelli, there are multiple drivers in the junior categories that could make the jump into F1, like Leonardo Fornaroli or Gabriele Mini, who've both impressed in F3, with Fornaroli even winning the title. Yet, it is still not certain that they're going to make it into F1. They first have to prove that they can be competitive in F2, although Fornaroli has already gotten a podium in the main race in Bahrain. We have seen it with multiple drivers that have been successful in junior categories only to not make it into F1 in the end. So for Italy, it is really important that Antonelli has successfully made it into F1. And he might also help keep the Italian Grand Prix as a fixed venue on the F1 calendar, because as we've seen with tracks like Spa, F1 doesn't seem to see the historical tracks on the F1 calendar as untouchable anymore. Instead, the sport starts to go to new places like Las Vegas, Miami or Saudi Arabia, who seem to be more lucrative for F1. However, a successful driver from Italy, who might bring back many fans from Italy, would be a reason for F1 to keep Monza on the F1 calendar every year. But even if you don't look at his nationality, he seems to be the next big talent for the future, especially if you look at his results in the junior categories. He won both the Italian and German Formula 4 Championship in 1 year, and the Formula Regional European and the Formula Regional Middle East Championship in the next one. This is just crazy to not only win 1, but 4 championships in just 2 years. Sure, he had a rather hard time in F2, but nonetheless, he has shown that he is a consistent and fast driver at an age at which most normal people don't even have their driving license yet. And because of this, Mercedes took the risk to pick him as the replacement for one of the biggest names in F1 history, Lewis Hamilton. This also reminds me a little bit of Hamilton's own start in F1. He got also signed up as a promising talent from F2 to go straight to a top team instead of a midfield or backmarker team. And even though Antonelli isn't straight away fighting for the title, he already started paying back the trust in him with his pole position in Miami. He shows that he can not only adapt very quickly, but that he can also withstand the pressure from driving for a top team like Mercedes in his debut season. And even though Russell is still faster than him and has beaten him on most occasions, his performances were still pretty good, especially if you compare him to the other rookie drivers, who had several crashes and spins, while he kept himself out of the trouble and drove some satisfying races. However, something like this is still a big gamble. It can turn out like with Red Bull and Lawson, which is why not many top teams do something like this very often. But for Mercedes, it seems to have been the right one. They have a young driver who is already good enough to keep up with the other top team drivers and who only gets better over time, and on the other, they have someone with George Russell, who is now an established number 1 driver who can bring back the team to the fight for the championship. The only problem might be that they could run into a situation like McLaren starts to right now. Here, Piastri starts to punish Lando's mistakes to take over the World Championship lead, even though Lando has been with the team since 2019 and who would normally seem as the one who will go for the World Championship. And especially since last year's Hungarian Grand Prix, we know that the situation in the team can become pretty frosty, especially when both drivers know that their car is good enough to win races consistently. But you don't even have to look at other teams. You just have to go back around 10 years in Mercedes' own history. Here, Hamilton started his dominant run, even though Rosberg was the one that had been with the team since its comeback in 2010. They fought very hard against each other, and the relationship got worse and worse because they were the only main 2 contenders for the title. This fight heated up until 2016, when Hamilton and Rosberg were on the same level in terms of performance, with multiple crashes happening between them. And if you look at Russell and Antonelli, you can say that Russell, especially since this season, is the clear number 1 driver in the team, who who's kept himself an outside chance in the championship with multiple good results. Meanwhile, Antonelli might get closer and closer to Russell in terms of pace over the next years. And if Mercedes build a good car for 2026, they might once again be able to fight for wins on a regular base. And an F1 driver who has a package that is good enough to win him the title doesn't want to give his teammate any sort of advantage. But Antonelli doesn't have to be aware of this right now. He doesn't need to go for the title in his first season, since he is so young that even if he gets a proper shot for the title in 5 years, he's still just 23. And if he will stay with Mercedes until then, or if he will move to another team, perhaps Ferrari, is something that we can only guess. What we can say, however, is that F1's future in terms of talents is looking bright. We have one of the most talented grids in years. After some years in the midfield, we once again have a strong McLaren with Piastri and Norris. Mercedes are also set to come back to the top strong with Russell and Antonelli. Ferrari has their hope for the future with Leclerc, together with a 7-time world champion in Hamilton. Red Bull still have the best driver on the grid with Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda, who has proven that he deserves his chance in an F1 top team despite his crash in Imola. And we have talents like Behrman, Bortoleto or Hadjar who might get their chance in a top team in the future. However, among all of these talents, Antonelli is the one that could bring back a lot of people from one of the biggest nations in motorsport. But what do you think about it? Do you think that Antonelli can bring back that many Italian motorsport fans to F1? And do you think that he is the future star of F1? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, feel free to subscribe, and until then, I'll see you next time.